The time I watched someone die. Me and my friends decided to go skating at our favorite park. Everything was fine for the first hour, and then we heard a commotion. We walked toward the noise, and that's when we saw a group of 8 to 10 people jumping a homeless man. It went from punching and kicking to these people literally bashing this man's head in with their skateboards. At this point, we all started to distance ourselves, but right as we did, one of the people pulled out a knife and repeatedly stabbed the man. Me and my friends were just frozen in shock. All of the attackers ran away, and the homeless man was absolutely drenched in blood. He got up and took like 10 steps, collapsed, and died. Cops showed up and let the man's body sit there for about an hour. Eventually they took the body away, and we all continued skating. The eeriest part is, later that night, the guy who delivered the final blows on the homeless man came back. One of my friends idiotically said, "Damn, y'all messed that guy up." To which the guy replied, "I don't know what you're talking about," with the most unsettling monotone voice and threatening look on his face. Mind you, he had dried blood on him from the attack. Scared the shit out of me, and we stopped going to that park afterwards. So yeah, let's not meet again. Moving to the next Reddit story. The guy at Target. So I just got back from a Target that's in a different part of town that I live in. It had something specifically in stock I wanted, so I made the drive over there. I realized this Target was in a rougher area of the city, and when I went inside, they had various items locked up. Also, there was no music playing over the speakers at this Target. It was strangely quiet. I had chosen to go early in the morning, so had a better chance of getting the item I wanted. The employees were very nice. Every one of them said good morning to me. So I get in there and make a beeline to the section of the store I'm interested in, which is at the very back. Got my item and headed to the Christmas section just to browse. That's the first time I hear like loud dress shoes clopping down the aisle I'm in. I look up, and there is a man dressed in a suit and dress shoes. He looks to be in his early 30s, I guess. He comes really close near me and starts looking at items around me. I have a basket and think, oh, I'm just in his way. I briefly look at his face as I start to move my basket away. He is staring at me. He looks panicked a little bit. His demeanor was like someone who has taken like coke or something jerky, repetitive, shaky, hyper. It unsettles me, not going to lie. But then I thought maybe he works for Target and he is trying to make sure I'm not stealing. Whatever the case, I go to a different aisle, and that's when I hear the dress shoes come my way again. I look up and there he is again. He stares over at me with that same expression, and I don't know, I get this sense of dread. He has no basket or items in his hand. He just has a cell phone that he's kind of glancing at from time to time. I again move to a different aisle. I'm still trying to convince myself that I'm being paranoid, like this isn't happening. At this point, it feels like he's chasing me. I just hear his dress shoes on the tile following me around. I call my husband, and he answers. We start talking on the phone. The man was hot on my heels and just walked right next to me. He would then stop right next to me, search for an item, then leave. If I stayed on the aisle, he would come back, stand next to me on the other side, and do it again. That's also when I noticed that nobody else was back there. No employee and no other customers. So while on the phone with my husband, I make my way to checkout, checking over my shoulder that he wasn't following me out of the store. But he didn't, as far as I can tell. So I made it home, and I'm okay. This situation scared the daylights out of me. I'm not going to lie. He just didn't look the part of someone who would be stalking someone through Target. He was well-dressed, overdressed even, and a younger-looking guy. But that's a lesson for me to learn, I guess, about thinking I know what a dangerous or unsettled person could look like. Moving to the next Reddit story. We got blood-soaked money for a pizza. So this happened 3 years ago, when I lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I won't say where in there, but at the time I jumped from job to job. I mentioned Grand Rapids, but if you don't live there, people will tell you that city is one of Michigan's fastest-growing cities in the state. But what they won't tell you is how much crime takes place there, how dangerous the city streets are when the sun goes down. You'd probably think when it got colder, you wouldn't deal with the nonsense, but it was always constant. Rather it be from men trying to convince you to get in their car with them, one almost running me over on the sidewalk to grab me, or those who follow you to take whatever you have on you, even if it has no value. One time I started working at a pizza chain named after an old-timey game. We were located more away from the city, so we thought we were away from the hysteria of the nightlife. But we had the occasional weird person come in, or homeless man trying to escape the cold. It was late in the evening, dark out, middle of December. I was inside taking orders and making pizzas, imagining myself jumping on the train that ran across the street and getting the fuck out of there. I hated every inch of this place and regretted moving back up there, destroying my life. We get a call to make a new order. There wasn't anything too suspicious. But when I picked up the phone, I could feel the tension on the other line. Just a regular large pizza and a drink. I placed the order. We usually hold the information of reoccurring customers, but they didn't have one. It was a hotel. Alrighty, nothing weird. I couldn't care enough. I start getting the order ready. I roll out the pizza, put on the sauce and toppings, throw it in the oven, and get it prepped to go out. My manager, the delivery driver, gets his coat on to start delivering pizzas. He gets them inside the warming bags and heads out. Something like 45 minutes later I get a call from my manager. He's fine, but says to get some bags and stuff ready for him when he gets back, as something strange has happened on the last delivery. Weird request, but okay, chief. When he makes it back into the store, despite the cold, he is sweating, and tells us the tale of the last delivery, the one that I took. He made it to the hotel room. There wasn't any lights on inside of it. When he made it to the door, he said he wanted to gag. There wasn't any lights. This extremely heavy smell of nickel in the air, despite the snow and wind. And after he knocked and the man opened the door, the smell was even worse. He couldn't see the man inside, or his surroundings, but he was getting really sketched out and wanted to just get away from there. He held his hand out to take the money from the man, who made no small talk, or even a hello. The man just gave him the money and shut the door, almost slamming it shut. The whole situation was so bizarre. My manager just started walking away, a little baffled, until the shock slowly faded and he remembered he needed to put the cash away. After all, our drivers were robbed before. The man didn't even want change, so he could feel there was more money in his hand than was needed. But he also felt that the money was off. It was wet, and it had the thick, heavy smell of nickel. My manager immediately got into his car and started driving back to the store. He never stopped to turn on the lights. He just wanted to get back. When he walked into the store, he showed us the money. I used to have a picture of it, but since it's been 3 years and I've gotten a new phone, I have since lost the picture. But what he had was money that was so soaked in red that when placed in a Ziploc baggie, looked like when there's those juices in those vacuumed bags that hold steaks. His hands were also covered, and his jacket pocket where he kept the money was also soaked in it. We immediately called the police, and they came out. But since there was nothing really showing a crime, no one screaming for help, no one calling the cops to report anything suspicious, they said they couldn't do anything but check out the hotel. But since it was a busy night for them, we don't think they did at all. They didn't even take the money. We all guessed what it was from. Because it was blood, the way it dried on my manager's hands, and that god-awful smell gave that away. But why? If it was a man who hurt themselves, why didn't they go to a hospital? The amount of blood was too much to be from a small wound, and the sketchiness of the whole situation was so bizarre. But I guess the police thought it wasn't strange to order a pizza with blood-soaked money. So we went on with our night. I still wonder what that was all about. But all I know, to the man who made that order, let's not ever meet, ever again. I have since moved to the country, and the peace I feel from being away from that city is almost like being in heaven. Sorry for any grammar or spelling issues. On mobile, and this is 100% a true story. Moving to the next Reddit story. Stuck on a sailboat in the middle of the ocean. When I was 14 and a freshman in high school, I had some pretty intense behavioral issues. I was partying constantly and getting into fights with my parents. Little did they know, I was also doing drugs. Most of my friends were seniors, due to me being on a varsity team, and hanging out with 18-year-olds wasn't helping my behavior improve much. My parents, at their wits' end, decided to try one more thing before military school, a week-long sailing experience out in the ocean that would teach participating kids discipline. The boat would not dock. We'd be in open water for 7 straight days. I was the youngest girl on the boat. There were 2 other girls, one 16 and one 17, and probably 5 or 6 boys between 15 and 18. The rest were crew, who we referred to as counselors. There was only one bathroom on the boat, and it was directly in front of the girls' bunks. As in, we were laid out right in front of the door, and anyone who used the toilet in the middle of the night would pass within a foot of us to enter the little stall. The very first night, one of the counselors got fixated on me. Obviously, every kid there had problems, but I was by far the youngest and female, and clearly did not know anyone. He sat next to me all through dinner, up on deck, talking to me, despite me trying to read the one book I'd brought, and he decided to hang out below deck with the kids after dinner. I tried to be polite, but anyone watching us could tell I was weirded out. Eventually, the counselor revealed that he was 19, and one of the other boys got on his ass about making me uncomfortable. "She's 14, bro," etc. The counselor sort of backed off after that, but I worried he was watching me for days after. Unfortunately for me, one of the other boys amongst the participating kids decided he wanted to get to know me better. I was friendly to him at first, as I didn't come to the program with any friends, and it was a long, lonely week. But things got weird fast. When I eventually told him I wasn't interested in him romantically, he threw a tantrum, yelling about how there's no love on this boat, and he couldn't wait to get back to the hose. His friends told him to leave it, but he was angry the rest of the week. I tried to just ice him out and pretend it wasn't getting to me. I became so paranoid, especially at night, that I had trouble sleeping. I gladly took the late watch shifts up on deck because it kept me out of that damp, claustrophobic space where I constantly felt off. Unsafe, I guess. I just had a feeling that something was wrong. At the end of the week, all the kids exchanged kicks so we could keep in touch. Immediately after I got home, I received a message from one of the weird kid's friends, and he told me that I was right to feel uncomfortable around the weird boy, because he had been watching me sleep. Apparently, the weird boy was so mad at me for rejecting him that he would stand at the edge of where the girls slept. Weird boy's friend only did it with him once, but got uncomfortable when weird boy suggested they unzip my sleeping bag and pull down my pants while I slept. The friend went back to sleep on the boy's side of the hold, and left weird boy to watch me. Weird boy was 17, at least a foot taller than me, and had 70 pounds on me easily. I couldn't have done a damn thing if he actually decided to do more than just watch. I didn't sleep well in group settings for years afterwards. I still think about how there was a time when I was 14 years old and unaware that someone had stood over me, watching me. Counselor on the boat, let's not meet. Weird boy on the boat, let's not meet. Friend of weird boy who didn't do anything, despite knowing what weird boy was doing, let's not meet. Let's move to the next Reddit story. In the woods behind my house. English is not my first language. I'm sorry if there's any mistakes. This happened to me when I was about 14. It was in 2020, in the cold winter of Canada. At that time, the confinement was obliged. Every 2 days we would have class at school, else it was online. So after my online class, I had to practice my acting part for my theater class. Since everyone was home, I didn't want to bother anyone with my loud voice and cries, so I decided to go in the woods. So you all gotta know that I live in the woods. I don't really have any neighbors, and no one walks in the woods behind my house, since it's a private property. Anyway, I had asked my sister if she wanted to accompany me, but when we got out, she said she had a weird feeling, and she didn't want to come along anymore, and ran back to the house. So instead I grabbed my dog, which is a pug, and at that time he was 3 years old. Important thing to know, my dog can't bark at all, and he still can't to this day. He is very social and cuddly. He would even run away with a kidnapper. So I get down my property to enter the woods behind the trees there are, and I get on the wood path. I know that wood like I know my back pocket. I never got lost. So as I was walking forward with my dog, I record a video of myself to see what I need to improve on my acting. That's when I see someone behind me. Of course, I turn back and look at the person. To this day, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, but that person was clothed head to toe, with dirty blankets and dirty coats. Yes, coats. They had a plastic bag, a black one that we use in restaurants for the trash. Oh, it was huge. I still remember to this day that vision of the person. I could only see their eyes. In the other hand, they had a sharp-looking object that I couldn't identify. So, out of instinct, I started walking faster. Because no one ever comes to these woods, especially on a -34°C winter. But my dog was not going forward. He was still and was not moving an inch, fixing with fear at that person, and he starts barking. That's when I knew something was off, because my dog doesn't bark and likes everyone, but at that moment, I could see the situation wasn't safe. So I whistled to him, and he walked, but his head was facing back, and the person started laughing. As they were laughing, they said, "I'm not scared of dogs." In my head I was asking myself, why would someone tell me this? So I walked faster, telling my dog to follow me, and I hear the snow crack. The person is walking faster and starts following me. That was it for me. I picked up my dog and started running. I could hear the stranger running after me. Then I get to a dead end. There's 3 thoughts going through my mind. 1. Going straight forward between the trees until I find a path. 2. Jumping off the snow cliff that is at least 10 feet high. 3. Going back on my feet and running for my life. All these knowing I had to have my dog in my arms. I can't think long enough that I hear the stranger's footsteps on the snow, and I decided to jump off the cliff with my dog in my arms. I was being swallowed by the soft snow, because here in Canada, there can be up to 3 feet tall snow on the floor. I didn't have my snowsuit. I was freezing, and ice was forming on my legs and hands. I thought I was going to die, but my dog is digging me out. I pick him up again and run towards the second cliff in front of me. I look back, and there I see that stranger for the last time. They had their left hand on their forehead, looking left and right at the horizon, looking for me. They spot me and start walking towards me. I ran as fast as I could, following the path that I knew would lead me to the street in front of my house. I ran for minutes, with my dog in my arms and the ice on my legs, in the freezing cold. I get back to my house, and I decided to act like nothing happened. Went back to my room, and I just stared at the void. I hope I never meet that person ever again. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like. See you next time.